Hey there everybody, I'm Claire Tansey. I'm a cookbook author and recipe developer, and I'm excited to show you one of our family's favorite weeknight meals. It is modern sloppy joes. What makes it modern? Well, stay tuned to find out. So sloppy joes starts with a kind of a simple beginning of onion and celery just minced up. So there are lots of ways to cut an onion, and I know that sounds silly, but whenever I'm teaching in culinary school, my students always think there is a right way and a wrong way. Well, I say the right way is the way that works for you, so let me show you how it works for me. I just like to cut off what I think of as the Arctic and the Antarctic. Yes, this onion is a globe. Then we cut right down through the international date line and take off the skin. I find it's easier to do it this way than to do it with a knife. I always seem to nick myself when I do this with a knife. So I just take off the skin like that, and we will get rid of that. So now I want this onion to be fairly finely sliced, so I'm going to cut it in half this way first, but not quite all the way through. And then I am going to cut it sideways like this, again, not all the way through. And then sideways again or crosswise like this. And that bit seems to have a little bit of skin on it, so I'm actually going to get rid of that. And then I'll just do the same for the other half. Now, one thing recipes never tell you to do, but I always do it. I always start the onion first. Oh. So I've got a nice big wide frying pan here. This is a big wide non-stick frying pan, nice and deep, and I'm going to heat that up over about medium. And into that I am going to put a little bit of canola oil. My favorite neutral oil. It's affordable, you can get it anywhere, it's Canadian. It's good for you. Always love me some canola oil. And then I'm going to dump this onion right into there. I actually I have one of these inexpensive little scrapers, and I just love using it. It makes it so much easier to get onions into the pan. And while that onion is just starting, now I can get the celery chopped. So celery is a nice, easy vegetable to chop. I don't like these little spiny bits at the top, so I always get rid of them. And ultimately I'm going to try to cut these into pieces that are about the same size as the onion. And so for me that means I am cutting them into long strips first, like that. And then I will cut each one of those long strips into little cubes. And as soon as that's chopped, I can add it right in there with the onion. Okay, one more. When I was developing this recipe, as I was writing my second book, Dinner Uncomplicated, I was thinking about adding carrots to this dish, maybe some grated carrots, but in the end I decided not to. But I would say that if you love carrots and you want to just amp up the vegetables in this dish, feel free to add one nice big carrot, just grate it on the big holes of a box grater. That's really the best way to get it incorporated, because bigger chunks of carrots will never really soften in the same way, and so you want to make sure they're really small and they don't kind of take up all that space and energy in there in the sloppy joe mix, right? So once that's going, I need to add a little bit of salt. And the reason I'm going to add salt at this point is it's actually going to help the onion and the celery to soften. If I had used, say, something like salted butter instead of canola oil, I could have skipped the salt step. but adding a little bit of salt at this time really helps the, like I said, the vegetables to start to soften because the salt actually gets in there and breaks down the cell walls and it's all good, right? So that's going to soften up. And now we just need a little bit of garlic. So with garlic, I'll show you what I'm doing here. That's the whole garlic clove. I just like to give it a bit of a bash with the side of my knife so I can get the peel off. Pretty easy. And then my favorite tool for dealing with garlic is a garlic press. You can certainly do it with a knife, but I love my garlic press, and I am going to use it. I'll get all these little pieces of papery skin off. That's a little bit too hot there. And then just open up my trusty garlic press, pop in all my garlics, and squeeze them right into the pan. There we go. One tip that I always tell my students is that when you are using anything, any tool or gadget that has a lot of little holes in it, that could be a grater, a garlic press, a microplane, a zester, rinse it right away. It makes cleanup so much easier. If you wait until it's all dried on, you have a heck of a time getting it, all those little bits of garlic out of the little hole. So I just give it a quick rinse right away. All right, quick cleanup here. So when you think of sloppy joes, you probably think of beef, and that is precisely what is going to go into this. It's going to be a pound of ground beef, but as I mentioned, these are called modern sloppy joes. So I really wanted to kind of update it. I remember sloppy joes from when I was in university. It was one of my university roommates' most favorite dishes, and it was just pound of ground beef, can of sauce, hamburger buns. So I wanted to increase the vegetables, and I thought instead of 100% beef, why not half beef and half lentils? Because lentils are just an amazing product, and when you get the lentils in with the beef, they have a very similar texture, cooked ground beef and lentils, cooked lentils. And so it's a great way of increasing the fiber, increasing all the good stuff, still having all those delicious flavors, and really having a fabulous meal. Now, you can go 100% beef, you can even go 100% lentils. I love it half and half. That seems to make the perfect modern sloppy joe for me. So once my vegetables are nice and tender, and you can see how these are getting lovely and soft, I wish I could send you a little delicious smelly snapshot of that. I'm going to add my beef, and this is just a simple pound of ground beef, everybody's favorite, but I'm going to do something just slightly different here. I'm going to put it right in the pan, plop, and then I'm going to kind of press it out and really get it to make contact with as much of the surface of the pan as I can. There we go, like that. And the heat is nice and high, nice and medium to medium high here. And then once I've got it all flattened out, typically, you know, when you start cooking beef, you kind of get in there and you stir it up and you want to break it up. What I actually want to do here is develop some caramelization or some really beautiful, dark, rich flavors on the bottom of the beef. So I'm going to let it sit there in the pan for about 3 to 5 minutes without touching it. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow the beef right where it's meeting the pan to really become golden, that gorgeous caramelization, that Maillard reaction we hear about. You don't have to know anything about it except what it means, flavor. So I'll leave that for a minute. And in the meantime, I'll introduce you to another one of my favorite ingredients. So this is passata, and what it is, it's really just pureed tomatoes. But I love this because it has a very, well, it's not going to sound great, but it has a very plain taste. It really just tastes like tomatoes. And I prefer this over canned crushed tomatoes. Again, it's just the The taste is just slightly less salty, a little bit more sweet, and I find it's a really delicious way to create a sauce in the sloppy joes. If you don't want to go out and find passata, or if you can't find it where you are, but it's everywhere. It's usually just with the spaghetti sauce. My suggestion would be instead to get a can of whole tomatoes and then to just puree that into smithereens in a blender or with an immersion blender. Don't get the crushed tomatoes in the can. They're a bit too thick and they're just a bit too strong in flavor. So I'm going to use the whole jar of passata, and then I have, for my lentil component, I have a can of lentils. Yeah, sure, I love cooking lentils, that's no problem, but for a quick weeknight meal, I really want this to be as simple as possible, and I am happy to use canned, already cooked lentils. I will just give them a drain and a rinse. So meanwhile, yes, this beef is still cooking away here. Haven't touched it. It's still cooking away. I still want it to continue to just keep getting brown. It's so hard to resist the temptation to get in there and to, break it up and stir it up. You gotta do something else. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna get my other ingredients together. Okay, so I've talked to you about the lentils. I've got the passata. Let's get that open. I also have a little can of tomato paste, another great ingredient, nice concentrated tomato flavor. And this is just a little bit of beef broth. And that is not homemade, that comes directly from a box. A little bit of brown sugar. And this I find is kind of one of the secret ingredients to great sloppy joes. They do need just a little bit of sweetness. You have the sour, the kind of tangy brightness from the tomato, and that little bit of brown sugar really just brings it into another dimension and means that it doesn't taste like spaghetti sauce. It doesn't taste like tacos. It tastes like sloppy joes, its very own thing. And of course, the final ingredient is in the fridge. Good old Worcestershire sauce. Worcestershire sauce. Terrific, lots of flavor, lots of richness, lots of umami. And again, it's gonna make the sloppy joes taste like unique, and that's really what you want, because you don't want your sloppy joes to taste like spaghetti sauce. If you want a spaghetti sauce, you get a made spaghetti sauce. Okay, I think I can finally turn my meat. Let's take a look. Yes, so you can almost see the meat is almost cooked here all the way through. And when I flip this over, I should be able to see some nice little brown spots on the underside of the meat, and that is a great thing. So that's exactly what I want here. And now I can get in and start really breaking this up. Okay, so now I can add the passata, and that is going to make this turn into more of a saucy kind of a dish. So I'm going to add this whole thing of passata. Give it a stir. It'll start to quiet down a bit. Turn the heat down so it doesn't start to splatter. Of course, there's a lot left in there, and I can't possibly let that waste. So I always just give it a little quick rinse and get out as much of that tomato passata as I possibly can. Waste not, want not. Okay, the lentils can go in now as well. Look at all those lovely little teeny tiny brown lentils. They're so cute. I really love canned lentils. I mean, I love lentils of all types, but those little canned lentils are so yummy. Great in a salad, great in a soup, and terrific mixed with beef in this beautiful weeknight dinner. Okay, so let's take a look at how this is coming together. So you can see as I start to incorporate the lentils and the beef, they really just blend so nicely together. What a great combination of Canadian ingredients. We've got our canola oil, onions and celery and garlic, all local, of course, beautiful Canadian beef, amazing Canadian lentils. All right, the tomato sauce was from Italy, but you know, you can get Canadian tomato sauce too. And I'll just mix that all around, looking really yummy. Now I've already got some salt in there. Remember, I added the salt with the onions and the celery. So I shouldn't really need any more salt, especially since I'm gonna be adding Worcestershire sauce at the very end. Now, we also need to add the beef broth and the tomato paste here, but I really like to mix things in individually because otherwise I find it just gets too big and I can't get everything mixed in quite properly. Actually, one secret little secret trick you could do is just take the tomato paste and mix it right into the broth. Because you know, sometimes tomato paste can be really sticky and it's hard to mix it all in. So let's see if this works. If I just do this, yes, easy peasy. Modern sloppy joesies. There we go. Now, you probably noticed that I use the entire can of tomato paste. I always use the whole can. I spent too many years discovering half a can of tomato paste in the freezer, in the back of the fridge. And so, you know what? I just add the whole can. It's delicious, and that way I don't waste it. So I'm just gonna, there, whisk that in, and then I can add this to the pile as well. So you can see why I use my biggest pan. This is really quite full. And I'll add the brown sugar now as well. So now this is pretty much everything except the Worcestershire sauce. And all I need to do now is just let this cook a bit so that it kind of concentrates a little bit, so that all the flavors really melt together, and that it evaporates a little bit and gets a little bit thicker. So I'm just gonna give it a couple of good stirs, let it come up to a nice boil, and then reduce it and simmer it, you know, for about 10 minutes until it gets nice and thick. All right, well, that has been simmering for about 10 minutes. So now I just need to add a bit of this lovely Worcestershire sauce, give it a taste, and it's time for dinner. So I'm gonna start with 1 tablespoon. I find people's salt preferences really vary. So what's good enough for me, it might be too salty for you, or vice versa. So just start with 1 tablespoon and then take a little taste and then decide if you wanna have the 2nd tablespoon. So 1 tablespoon is going in. Give that a little stir around. Okay, I can actually turn this off now. Make sure it's all stirred together. You can see how it's gotten nice and thick. Vegetables are gonna be nice and soft. Just ready for the buns. Okay, a little taste here. It's gonna be very hot though. I'm gonna say another 1/2 tablespoon for me. So, always easier to add more, nearly impossible to take salt out. Now, one thing I want to mention about this is it freezes beautifully. So you can make a double batch of this and just put half of it, chill it, and put it in the freezer, and then do a big favor to your future self. You got dinner ready for some time down the road. It's also great in a lunchbox. You can send it in a thermos and then put the bun on the side if your kids love it. So there's lots you can do with sloppy joes, and of course, they're sloppy and they're super fun to eat. But the great thing here is that it's a great combination of beef and lentils and super easy to make using ingredients that you've got on hand, which is of course everything that I'm all about. I'm all about making dinner uncomplicated. Heck, I wrote the book on it. So I am going to load this into a little bun. I really like using these very soft brioche buns. These are just from the grocery store. They're kind of like hamburger buns, but there's something so dreamy about them. Toast them or not, and some people do like to put a little bit of mozzarella or something on their sloppy joe, totally up to you. And then I'm just going to, well, that spoon's not gonna be big enough. I'm gonna need a bigger spoon than that. Get some of this lovely sauce, saucy, sloppy, juicy yumminess there, pile it bit by bit onto, oh yeah, it is gonna be super messy. I'm very excited. This is gonna be such a great dinner, a dinner that everybody in the family loves. You know, it's kind of an old-fashioned flavor like meatloaf or something like that, but it's got that modern twist, and I think it deserves to have a comeback. So a nice big mess of it there. Pop that on top. Modern sloppy joes. A fantastic, quick and easy, affordable Canadian dinner that you can have tonight. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Claire Tansey. My new book is called Dinner Uncomplicated. I'd love to see you again. Have a great day and happy cooking. Bye.